my goals are to find best-in-class operators that I can partner with and help come alongside. We get deals done together. And so help raise capital, do investor relations, sales and marketing, which is really my strength. So being able to partner with them and bringing the best investments to my investors, that they can trust me, and we're going to find really great options for putting their money to work.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am pleased to be joined today by Rebekah Taylor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jan.
How you doing?
Good. Thank you. It's really good to be here. I appreciate the invite.
I am, grateful that you decided to join me. Would love to meet you in person. Not long ago, a few months ago, back at a conference, and I hope you're enjoying those socks.
Yes. I actually had a dream about the socks last night. I'm like, I've got to remember to wear those socks for this podcast this morning.
We won't be testing you.
Yeah, I'm not going to bring my feet up right now. That might be a little weird.
Yeah, please do not. But no, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And Rebekah, for those of you who don't know, she is the founder of Tailored Investments. You like that play on words? Rebekah Taylor, Tailored Investments, T-A-Y. Love the play on words there and love the branding that's involved with that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background for our listeners who may not be so familiar with you, and how you got into the real estate game, which is really the common denominator of pretty much everyone on this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. I will try to keep this short and sweet. Like we talked about earlier, I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Yona, you have 6 kids, which is just incredible. I'm so impressed with your parenting skills. And so I grew up in kind of all over the country, but Montana is where I came from. My dad was a pastor for almost 30 years. And money was always really tight. Being in ministry, it's hard. You don't make a lot of money. So feeding 5 kids, it was tough for them, but we made it. And my dad was always trying to find ways to supplement our income. And so he tried a lot of different things. Some of them were successful. Some of them weren't quite as successful, but he ended up finding real estate back in 2004. And that was when I was heading off to college in Virginia. And so I was able to kind of watch him over the years build nothing, something from nothing. And he has had some tremendous success along the way. He's tried just about everything in real estate, and it's been really cool to watch his journey. And so he'd been encouraging my husband and I for many years to get into real estate. And we always, had been thinking about it. Started listening to Bigger Pockets. I think back in 2012, finally bought our first rental. Back then, our house, we house hacked like many of those that, that's kind of their first foray into real estate. And so I was working in the tech world. I spent about 10 years there doing sales and marketing and did great in that space, earned some really good money. And we were able to invest a lot of that, save a lot of it, invest it. We actually paid off our house early. Before I was even 30, we paid off all of our debt. We were totally debt-free, no mortgage. We had a rental that was bringing in money every month, living, in a pretty good lifestyle, traveling the world. We love to travel. And then as time went on, we kind of realized, man, this can be hard still. Even though we have a good financial situation, my job is really stressful. I work long hours. I have this quota every month they have to meet. We want to have kids eventually. And this is going to be hard, I think, to sustain our lifestyle with how much I'm working and traveling. I was traveling a lot for my job. So we started to really kind of reassess our lives and what we wanted. And back in 2016, we had our first child after 8 years of marriage. And I had a pretty complicated delivery, almost died, and was in the hospital for a while. It was a kind of touch and go situation, took some time to recover. And that really, I think, made me put life into perspective. Like I don't want to spend the next 50 years of my life working in a cubicle and working for money. Like I want my time back. And so we really started to focus on that more and more. 2020, I quit my tech job. We took a sabbatical around the country for 3 months and traveled with a camper in tow and our 2 young kids. Wow. And it just gave us this amazing chance to dream and figure out, what do we want to do with our lives? How does this look? How can we create more time? And real estate is a thing we kept coming back to. So we were like, we need to focus on this more, continue building our portfolio. I got my real estate license and started brokering deals. And then I stumbled into the passive investing world and had the chance over the last couple of years to work at two different firms as their director of investor relations and just grow in that space, learning more about syndications. And it's been a really cool journey to see the options out there for people that may not be ready to go be a landlord and an active investor. It's a lot of work, So I've loved being able to help friends and family, invest in real estate in a more passive way. And so that's my journey, where we've come from. And I'm just so blessed to be able to have more of my time and control it, and enjoy my time with my family now too.
Amazing. Wow. That was a great summary. I mean, you packed it all in there, and there's so much to break down. I mean, there are so many questions I have and points we can kind of delve into in that journey. I mean, first of all, the experience that you had with the birth of your first child, that's just something like that really does, in many cases, change just your whole mindset and perspective on life in general. And so I can't imagine what that was like. Having gone through that, personally, we had a very scary health crisis in our family, which about 8 years ago, which actually also kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of things that happened with me. For those of you who know me and kind of listened to the show, talked about that a little bit, but really focusing and honing in on something that was really there all along, meaning your father had been encouraging you about the real estate, and you had the experience with the rental that you house hacked. And so there were those things. It was kind of like the opportunities were just waiting for you. They were like right there in front of your eyes, and you just needed to have that, sometimes going through that hardship, that opens your eyes to what's already there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell me about, leaving this, high paid, whatever tech job. Obviously it's stressful. I know what that's like. And I know that it sounds like you enjoyed it, but at the same time, didn't enjoy the fact that it was just taking so much of your time, which so many people, I think there's a lot of listeners that can relate to that.
Yeah.
You feel like they're stuck. They know that it's building their bank account, but it's not necessarily building their life's bank account.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I had a little cubicle with no windows in it. And it was and I will say, as time went on, after having my daughter, I did, as the years went on, negotiated with the companies I was at to get a shorter work week. And so I was not working a full 40 hours a week since 2017. I realized, my time is super valuable. I've been in this space long enough doing sales. Like I have the skill set to be able to do a lot of my job in a shorter time frame, but still get paid a good amount, So that's something I really started to realize my value, my time value, and who I am and what I offer to these companies. And so that was helpful. They were great. I actually really liked my schedule. I worked 3 days a week when I left. And so it was hard to give that up because I'm like, I have this steady income, this great paycheck, benefits, all of this. But at the same time, I was going to a cubicle every day. It was very technical, the environment I was in. I just didn't love what I was selling. And again, at the end of the day, I was just working for money. My money wasn't really working for me outside of the investments that we had done. And so during COVID, it was 2020, we're like, man, life is short. This is kind of a scary time that we're in. Maybe we need to reassess. And my husband was working in ministry at the time too, and was given this 3-month paid sabbatical. So we're like, we'd always dreamed of going on the road with a camper. And so, but let's just do this, and I couldn't take my job, and the timing was perfect. I'm so glad that I left. And we had always lived kind of frugally, like we were cautious in our spending. Since we got married 15 years ago, we had always been intentional about living, with a budget in mind, sticking to that, living below our means. We just weren't buying crazy cars, and we did go on a decent amount of trips. I will say that's the one area we will spend some money in, but we're still even frugal in that space, but just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit about our spending, even about like our health insurance. Sometimes that's a big fear for people, is like, I don't want to leave my health insurance if I leave my W-2. And there's other ways to do those kind of things. And so we just had to get creative. I think that's the big thing. And I had to get over the fear. I was so scared. I'd had a W-2 for so long, like getting out of that and realizing I'll be okay. I can make money regardless of whether I have a W-2 or not. There's other options out there.
It is scary. And like you said, with the sales background, really, you can do anything. I mean, the skills that you get from being successful in sales translate to anything, especially for an entrepreneur, to anything, really everything and anything. Obviously, you need to bring on other people who may be more technical, may have partners who can deal with more operational things that, entrepreneurs like us may not be so great at or enjoy as much, right? But that's the power of teams, and that's the power of teamwork. And that's incredible how I've seen so many people in the real estate space grow, and get way beyond where they ever even imagined they would go. I'm curious about your travels, because I do get a lot of people on the show who talk about travel and how much they love it. But what is it for you? Like, is there something like certain places you like to visit, or it's just seeing the world or different cultures? I mean, I was really drawn by someone I had on the show. Actually, we had a couple on the show, Victor and Lee. They talked about traveling when they were married, and they went to, I don't know, somewhere, it was Brazil or somewhere in Europe, and they had like an epiphany just about life. And like, it wasn't so much about the places they visited, but it was about the ability to just be free to think.
Yes. Yes, you need to be free to think. I feel like when you're home, at least for me, I'm kind of like an type A personality. I always have a list. I've got kids now. There's always something going on. And I feel like when you can get out of the space, even just like 30 minutes away, go camping, it just gives you a chance to disconnect a little bit, put your cell phone aside, get away from technology, get away from the worries of the world, and just rest, which is super important. I'm a big fan and believer of taking a Sabbath every week. My family and we do that regularly. And I just think that that's vital for your mental health, your physical health, all of these different parts. You can be the most financially successful person in the world, but if all of these other aspects of your life are crap, then you're really not going to be happy, So that's something I think we've been focused on over the years, is how do we have this whole life health outside of just our finances? Finances are super important for sure, but we also want to focus and help others focus on these aspects of their life that they might have let slip to the side a little bit. So traveling for us has just been this amazing opportunity to see other cultures. I feel like you get a new perspective when you get around other cultures, other people. We've had a chance to do a number of mission trips and help in countries around the world, like India and Morocco and Honduras and a bunch of different countries, some of them, third world, where these people are just, they don't have anything. So when you can go and serve them and give back, and it just helps you see how truly blessed you are and how little you actually really need and how you can give, and so that's been a big focus for us, is how can we give continually, to our church, to different efforts and with our time. So that's something we do when we're traveling. Not every trip, don't get me wrong. Like we just went to England a month and a half ago for a baby moon and had a great time, So we've been to Europe is definitely probably one of our favorite places. We've been to Europe, I think 7 times. We've been over 30 countries. So it's been a really cool journey to experience the world and now take our kids as well.
That's cool. And they're able to experience it to a certain degree and see what it's like to be in a different place and different food or different currency or whatever.
Yes. We took our daughter when she was 1 to Colombia, South America, and that was a blast. A lot of people were like, is it safe down there? Are you sure you should be taking your baby? And I was like, it's totally safe. We were in a great area. And then when we had both of our kids, we took them to Costa Rica and had a blast there. We've been able to do some really great things with them. And that's been a huge blessing, to show them the world. And they love to travel. They're all about it now. So it's been cool.
Very cool. I have not had good experiences with kids on planes. So I don't know.
You have a few more than I do.
Well, to be honest, I'm not necessarily talking about my own kids. To be perfectly honest, my first experience, my first flight ever, and this maybe probably just has like some trauma that I have. I flew when I was, I think, I want to say like 7 or 8 years old. I flew by myself for the first time. It wasn't long. It was from Boston to New York. It was like an hour trip, visiting my grandparents in New York. And I literally had a baby on the plane in the seat next to me that would just scream the whole flight. And so that was like, but it is very common. Kids do not really enjoy planes. So kudos to you.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Traveling with kids. That like sticks with me until this day. But no, it's amazing to be able to do that and to be able to bring your kids and travel the world like that. And I'm really impressed that you take a Sabbath once a week. That's pretty awesome. I don't think there are a lot of people do that. I mean, obviously I'm Orthodox Jewish person. We were very much about that. The Shabbos, the 1 day a week where it's just really unplugging from everything. There's no technology. It's just time for family and prayer and community and a lot of food, but there not too many people are do something like that. I mean, how did you obviously you grew up, it sounds like, in a family that valued those type of experiences.
Yes, I am a Christian. And so that's something that we've kind of built into our lives. And it's hard because there is always something to be done,
Of
and again,
course.
being my personality and like the things that I'm trying to accomplish, we're very goal oriented. There's always things, but it's setting those things aside and realizing that our rest and our family and spending time in prayer, getting to enjoy these gifts that God's given us. We want to have that every single week. And
Yeah.
he commands us to. So that's, for us, it's an act of obedience, but it's been a blessing, like I'm really thankful that we take the time. And Saturday, we're going to go out. We have a boat. And so we're going to go out on the boat on the lake and just spend some time having fun together. It's just the four of us. And yeah, so I definitely recommend that regardless of your background in terms of your spiritual beliefs. I just think Sabbath is really good for people in all areas with their health.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. People, again, depending on religious belief, like there are so many different ways to do it, and you should find whatever, your right way is. But I want to transition now and talk a little bit more about what you're doing currently. And like you said, we transitioned from the high powered, tech job, leaving the 9 to 5, living life on your own terms, and what that means right now. So for a lot of people, they're like, okay, I want to retire. But for retirement for entrepreneurs, in many cases, just means finding something more fun to do to make money. And so for you, like real estate investing, but it's not what a lot of people think traditional is, like single family investing, right? You've turned much more towards the syndication, multifamily. I know you're doing like assisted living facilities also now. So tell me a little bit more about like how that transition happened and, what you're actually working on now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I spent the last couple of years at two different firms working with them and learning from them, which was one of the best. I mean, the fact that I got paid to learn was really cool. The first firm was focused more on fund to funds. And so we acquired, or put money into larger assets that we're putting into a portfolio fund that our investors would get into. And so I had the chance to work there. And then the last group that I was with was doing singular assets, just value add multifamily. And so was able to spend some time there, invest in that and learn from that, and then branched off onto my own to do tailored investments, as you mentioned. And so my focus is really partnering with the best of the best operators, finding people on the ground. I can't be everywhere, but through my experiences over the years, both in these firms that I've worked for and then individually investing, we have our own small portfolio here in Lynchburg, Virginia. So we've been able to learn a lot. I've managed that. I have property managers now. I've been able to learn a lot, both actively and passively. So my goals are to find best in class operators that I can partner with and help, come alongside. We get deals done together. And so help raise capital, do investor relations, sales and marketing, which is really my strengths. When it comes to the operational side, there are better people out there. So being able to partner with them, they're finding the deals, they're operating the deals, and I'm still involved, but I really want to make sure that I'm bringing the best investments to my investors, that they can trust me, and we're going to find really great options for putting their money to work. And so, yes, assisted living is one that I've been working on. And that was something that I kind of found through a relationship. And I've just been blown away by that avenue and that opportunity for investing. I mean, it's kind of like a flavor of multifamily, definitely more business intensive, but there's such a growing need for that demographic. We have like a huge population that is getting up into these elderly years that are going to need care. And there's just not enough facilities out there. I was talking to somebody the other day. His mom, I think he mentioned, is on a wait list in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is like an hour from me. And I think she's like 287 on the list for that facility. And there's like a $500,000 buy-in just to be able to get into the facility. So there's just, it's incredible what the lack of supply, and the huge demand. And I think it's only going to increase pretty dramatically in the years to come. And I don't want to just have, facilities for them. I want them to be quality care for these residents and really good community. The community is so important. And so as they get into these older years, I want them to have a place where they can enjoy and have friendships and enjoy just being with each other, because it can be hard transitioning out of your freedom, your home, and now having a place where you need a little bit more. And so that's been my focus. And I'm really excited about that space. Not to say that I won't do multifamily. I think multifamily in general has been a little bit overheated the last few years. It's just been harder to find deals. I'm a part of some different masterminds, and it's been challenging to just find deals that really pencil out and have strong returns. And so the assisted living space, I'm seeing a lot stronger returns there. I think there's other avenues as well. My husband and I do just like local lending. We do some lending here in town to small businesses and flippers. That's been a great way to put our money to work for short term, so we're always kind of looking and trying to figure out what's the best avenue to make our money work and to partner with other people to help them. We just are passionate about helping other people because, again, we see the benefits of having that financial stability.
Absolutely. We had Vinny Chopra on the show a long time ago. He talked about the silver tsunami. That's what he calls it. Where you have such a huge population of, baby boomers that are going to be moving into these assisted living facilities. And there are different levels of it, right? You have, I don't know, assisted living and future care. I don't know, all these different, I don't know what they call them. Anyways, where different levels for different people from, 55 up or whatever you have it. There is a huge need, a huge demand. I think that even though, like you said, there's a very operational intensive aspect to the business, much more so than, your regular property management type, but it pays very well and it can be extremely lucrative business if done right. So good luck with that. That's certainly a great asset class to go into. One thing that I'm really fascinated about is how you're able to, like you said, learn on the job working with these other companies. I think a lot of people have this misconception. Number one, thinking it's so hard to get into real estate because, I don't really like to manage properties, right? There's so many things like that. But also people think, well, I don't know how to, find partners or find people to work with. I think the first step is just finding out what your best skill set is, because you may be great at underwriting. You may, if you have like an engineering background or something like that, you may be great with spreadsheets. That could be an awesome way to add value to someone else who may not be so good at like someone like myself. I'm not great at spreadsheets. I could use someone who's much more operational, much more technical in that regard. So it's about finding your skill set and then finding those right partners. So how did you do that? You mentioned you're part of some masterminds. Was that how you originally met those people, the companies that you worked for?
No, actually, it was through like friendships and just connections that recommended, they're like, oh, and actually, this is interesting. My husband, the first firm I was with, Wellings Capital, my husband had heard the founder on Bigger Pockets many years prior. And he was like, wow, that guy lives in Lynchburg. That's so interesting that he lives in our town, like our small town. We should reach out to him. It sounds like he's doing some really cool things. And so then when we heard about the job opening, my husband was like, you need to apply for that. That's really cool. And again, I wasn't at the time just familiar or I didn't really understand the syndication passive investing space. And so that was new for me. I had sales, marketing, customer service background, all of those things I was able to bring into that role, but there was still a lot that I had to learn. And so I was able to learn from some of the best, which was really, really helpful. But yeah, I think just those connections, networking, I'm passionate about networking. I'm involved in our local real estate investor meetup every Friday morning. We get together at Panera. So, just finding those different avenues, to just connect with people. I do a decent amount of events. Yona, you and I saw each other at MFIN Con, like you mentioned, back in Charlotte in June. I love getting out, because I just think there's always something to learn. Like there's so much to learn. I don't care how smart you are. You will never, ever know it all. You have to continually be learning. And so getting around smart people that can just teach you. I had my mastermind yesterday with a group of a lot of fund managers. And I am not strong on the operational side, the underwriting side. Like you said, that's one of my strengths. So if I can get around other people that are, and we can talk through best practices or operators that we're all looking at and vetting, it just helps to be constantly pushing yourself forward and realizing you can't do it by yourself.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And that is such a small world also, the fact that you're in the same town. And well, isn't that Paul Moore, Wellings Capital? Amazing. Yeah, he's so much value. I learned so much from him on Bigger Pockets over the years also. He used to be very, very active in the forums, back when I started, learning a Bigger Pockets like 2015, 2016. I remember him, out there. So you probably had experience in not only in the multifamily through him, also know who's involved in mobile home parks and other types of properties. So that's great, being able to work with an operator who has a lot more experience and kind of diversification of assets as well.
Yes. I think that's important. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but I really love diversification. And especially now, like having some of our investments with mobile home parks and self-storage, and those have been a little bit better. Whereas some of our multifamily, some of those distributions have paused lately, and
Right.
things have changed. The world changes constantly. And so the diversification, I think, has been really helpful. Now, again, that may not be for everybody. Some people like to stick with really their lane. And I get that, you know what you know best. And so that's where you're going to spend all your time and effort. For me, being able to partner with other people that know what they know best and then, invest alongside of them has been a good way for us to move forward.
Yeah. And so I'm also like a passive investor in a lot of deals. And I've seen obviously the diversification really matters when you're dealing with it. You don't want to put all of your investments in one asset class and even in one location. If you can diversify that, it's so much better. But I want to ask you, like, in your experience and obviously you're looking at this from both sides of the equation, from the investor side, as well as from the raising capital side, right? So you're looking at it from both sides of that equation. Like, how does one who is looking to invest passively in, syndicated, whatever it is, how do they go out choosing or finding the right person or someone to, it's like, oh, do I just go with the person who has like the biggest social media following, or like, what are some of your criteria?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot. It's hard to even narrow that down. I would not go with somebody that has the biggest media following for sure. I mean, that's
Grant Cardone. You wouldn't invest with him?
No, I don't know. I have not invested with Grant, so I cannot speak to that. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of really good marketers out there, and you just have to be careful. Like, they may be able to talk a big talk, but do they have the track record? And that's the big one I look at, is their track record. Have they been in business more than just a year or two? Like, I'm newer to my specific business, but I only partner with people that have been around for a long time. They've got to have a proven track record before I would go and bring investor money and bring my own money to the deal. So I would definitely ask, like, how long have you known them? Can you see the track record? Can they show you the track record? Have they been sending out distributions? What kind of debt are they taking on the properties? That's been a big source of issues the last year.
Anxiety.
Bridge debt. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but a lot of companies are losing their properties and investors' money because they've taken out some really bad debt. And so I think that's a big one. I would ask, like, how much money they're putting into the deal themselves. Are they just raising money, or are they actually putting some of their own money into it? Because, if they don't have skin in the game, I think that would be a little bit concerning as well. What are their assumptions going into their underwriting? Is it conservative, or are they being pretty aggressive? And I think in the years past, we saw a lot of aggressive underwriting, people thinking that we would always be up at 95% occupancy and we could keep raising rents by 10% or 20% every year. And we can't, things have changed. Like, my own rentals in Lynchburg, I've had to really slow down on my increases in the rents because, it's just the market's really slowed down and it's kind of plateaued. So those are some of the things, how long have they been in that specific market? How is the market doing? Is it growing? Who are the big players in terms of businesses? And there's a lot. I could spend a lot of time telling you about all the things that you need to
follow-up episode.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to share and offline if people want to reach out, but I've certainly seen some good and I've seen some bad operators out there. And it's unfortunate because it hurts all of us when we have people that make bad decisions and lose a lot of investors' money, because those investors don't want to come back and do real estate again. And I hate that, because I still think real estate's a really amazing asset to invest your money in. But when you lose a lot, it's hard to want to trust other people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Very, very important things to cover there. And I'm glad you shared at least a little bit, because it's important. I know a lot of our listeners invest in real estate and are thinking about investing and finding the right people to invest with and may not necessarily know. And so I think for someone like you, who has not only been on the raising capital side, but also as a passive investor, figuring out how to do that, it's really important. So thanks for sharing that. I want to transition now to what we call the final four. Rebekah, these are the 4 questions I love to ask all my guests. First question is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
I love this question. I was thinking about this before a call. I have been a dishwasher, which I think I heard Mark Kuhn, he was talked on your podcast a couple times ago. He was also in that space, and that was not fun. I'm trying to think outside of that box though. I think I was probably 16 or 17 in high school, and I got in trouble. I don't even remember. I think I was like late for curfew or something. And so my dad's punishment to me was that I would wear the mascot of our school, which was a ram, this big like ram with horns. I had to dress up as the mascot, and I had to go work at a plant sale that the school was putting on to raise money for the school. And so I had to do that multiple days. It was blazing hot outside in the middle of summer. People would drive by and yell at me and throw stuff at me. It was so embarrassing. Like everybody at school knew that Rebekah was in the Ram costume and you should go visit her. And so that really taught me my lesson. I realized I needed to obey and I didn't want to be late for curfew again. And also I never wanted to be a mascot. That was not where I wanted to spend my time. So it was a short-lived job and I didn't make any money from it, but it was a good lesson.
That was a good lesson. And definitely that qualifies for the worst job for sure. Many levels. Second question, what's a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
I read The Obstacle is the Way by, I think it's Ryan Holiday. And that was a recommendation from my business coach, Julie Holly. I think you know Julie. She is fantastic. And that book has been really instrumental for me, just realizing that sometimes pains in our life, challenges, hurts, can really be used for good. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can turn and pivot in those situations and move forward and learn from those lessons and be even better, you know? And so I've been able to, I've gone through some challenges, like I said, with childbearing and even losing a job. And those were painful situations that, you know, I wouldn't wish on anybody, but at the same time, they're part of my story. And I feel like I've become stronger through those challenges, through those painful situations. I've been able to realize all that I have and what I've learned along those paths and able to implement them in my next chapter of my story. So I really like that book. I've been wanting to read some of Ryan's other books as well, but The Obstacle is the Way is a really great book. I definitely recommend checking it out.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And Julie Holly is a great coach to have. You're very fortunate to have someone like her on your side. So not just for the book recommendations, obviously, but we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for anyone who wants to check out The Obstacle is the Way. Third question is, what is a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
One that my husband and I have been talking about for years is learning Spanish. I took Spanish in high school, but I never really paid attention that much. And looking back now, I wish I would have spent more time really learning it. And we've been to a number of Spanish speaking countries around the world, and we can get by a little bit with our small knowledge, but we really like that culture. We love that language and those people. And a dream of ours is to live in a Spanish speaking country at some point and just immerse ourselves there and have our kids learn the language. And they're just such a kind, I feel like that the Hispanic community is just amazing, such warm, loving people. And so for us, one day we'd love to live in that culture for a season and learn the language. So that's definitely
awesome.
something we're passionate about.
That's definitely the way to do it. That's for sure. Immersing yourself is definitely like the number one way to learn a language. So good luck with that. That's an awesome skill to want to learn. Fourth and final question, what does success mean to you?
So I think success, absolutely, from like a financial standpoint where you have enough, we have been over the years focused on having multiple streams of income. You know, I think that's super important. And thankfully, like that has helped sustain our lifestyle for me to be able to be out on my own and having my own business. And, you know, at the beginning, it's hard. You don't make a ton of money, but we have all of our other investments that have supported us along the way. So thankfully, we're in a good financial position, but I certainly want to keep building that to where we wouldn't have to work at all if we didn't want to. You know, we would have that constant stream of income and multiple sources to sustain our lifestyle and give us all of our time to use our time however we wanted. And we are passionate about, like I said, giving back and helping in our community, our church, world, you know. And so I think having more time to do that is something that is successful for us. That would be success. But then also teaching other people and helping other people along the way. Because again, I think we've been so blessed with 15 years of marriage. And part of the way we have stayed strong and stayed together in our marriage is we haven't had a lot of financial stress. And so I think people that do go and have marriage and family with financial pressures, it's really hard. You know, it's just a tough, it impacts everything. So I think if we can help other people along the way learn how to be smart with their finances, because a lot of times it's a spending problem. They're not budgeting, you know, there's issues behind that. So I think just helping people learn how to make their money work and how to be smarter with their time so that they can have a more healthy, holistic lifestyle. That's really what success looks like for me, is just how do we do that? And real estate, again, has been kind of an avenue, but there's a lot bigger passion behind that, not just the real estate and financial journey, but how do we help people big picture have that healthy life?
100%. I think more than anything, it's really just the education, meaning the spending habits come from a lack of awareness of what finances and how to have a budget and how to have a balanced, financial situation. I think the culture that people, that Western culture we live in has a lot to do with that, encouraging those type of habits where they're not healthy. I mean, they're not healthy, not just physically and emotionally, but also financially. They're going to be detrimental, especially later on in life. I mean, talk about college, and don't get me started on that whole thing, whether it's worth it or not, but going into debt for the rest of your life in order to pay off your college loans just doesn't make sense.
No, I agree.
One thing I actually had someone, and now I always have the hardest time when I'm in the midst of a conversation, remembering who it was that said it on the podcast, but we had someone not long ago, maybe 6 months ago or so, talk about how they were implementing in their communities that they owned, the multifamily properties that they owned, implementing free financial education learning programs like for all the residents, just to be able to teach them about these important concepts. Like, that's a great way. You have access, obviously you can try to do it on the internet. You can try to reach out to random strangers and whatever, and, start with your family, but you have access to people that are for all intents and purposes, they're your residents, they're your clients, they're people that are paying you to live in your properties. You have, in a lot of respects, a responsibility to them, to make sure they make the right financial decisions so they can keep paying rent, and staying there. So there's kind of a two-way street there. But at the same time, I found that totally fascinating and amazing that they were actually implementing something like that in their properties.
I love that. That's really, really cool. That's something I should definitely think about, because that's something we're passionate about, is just educating people. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to think about who that was that said that, and we'll make sure to put that in the show notes. But Rebekah, how can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they want?
Yes, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So definitely check me out there. It's Rebekah Taylor. I think it's 1986 at the end. And then my website is Tailored Investments. So Taylor, like my name, Taylored, tailoredinvestments.co. So definitely hit me up there. And I'd love to schedule a call if you just want to connect. I may not be the right person to invest with, but I'm happy to point you in the right direction. I have a lot of connections in this industry, and there's a lot of really solid operators out there. So if I'm not the right fit, please let me be a resource. That's something I'm, again, passionate about, is helping others and being a good resource.
Awesome. Amazing. We'll make sure to put all your contact in the show notes. And I highly recommend everyone reaching out to Rebekah. Please do that. And I remembered it was Jenny Gu from Vertical Street Ventures out of Phoenix that was doing that program. Just amazing. So you guys can go back and check episode 313 if you want to learn more about that, or just reach out to Jenny on LinkedIn or wherever. And thank you again, Rebekah. It's been such a fun conversation. Really great learning more about your story and what you're working on now, and appreciate the time coming out today.
Thank you, Yona. Appreciate it. It's nice to see you.
Yeah. And to all our listeners, thank you as well. I appreciate you joining us all the way to the end once again. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.